Away. We're in the midst of Parashat Toldot. We're just at the beginning still of the Parsha. And here we start seeing the beginnings of what will be, in retrospect, understood to be a split between the brothers. Again, last we learned was the fact that Rashi tells us from Chazal that the Pasuk Chaf Zayin, verse 27, Vayigdelu HaNe'arim, that the boys grew up, and Esav became such and such, and Yaakov became such and such, is a result of maturation, that there was a point where the two of them were essentially indistinguishable one from the other. Rashi writes, Kol zman sheyu ktanim lo hayu nikarim b'ma'aseihem. They weren't yet known in by their actions. Ve'en adam medakdek bahem mativam. No one paid close attention to what their nature or the character was. When they became 13 years of age, I'm going to submit that sometimes when something shocking and terrible happens that beggars belief, we want to understand how maybe there were signs of it earlier on, signs that we missed, things we should have picked up on, and somehow it gives us a better understanding for ourselves, just as a coping mechanism as to how what happened was either inevitable or was somehow predictable. We could have taken steps, we should have taken steps. And I wonder if some of that isn't going on here also. In Chazal, again, from the point in utero, there's a lot of kicking. So one of them is already kicking because they have a prenatal, preternatural and prenatal awareness of what it means to serve Hashem, and the other one already has a prenatal and preternatural ability to sense when they're in the presence of evil, because they are definitionally an evil person. I think for many of us, and we talked about this last time, we find it very challenging to understand such a thing. The notion that someone is either beyond redemption or already has a nature that's so ingrained that is given toward a proclivity toward evil that they're, it's an inexorable slide into depravity and the like. This is, I think, for many of us, very, very troublesome. I think it was troublesome for Chazal as well. And standing right as the great example of how this complexity was playing out is, we're not there yet, but everyone knows what's coming, is what Yitzchak Avinu is trying to do to give Esav reasons to be worthy of bracha. He wants to give him an opportunity to go out into the world to do what he does best and internalize what he's doing as part of his avodat Hashem through his kibud av. Right? It's all connected. We're not there yet, so I don't want to jump the gun, but just to realize like that story, and then Rivka's taking another route. We have to have it a little bit in mind already here, because when you read V'yigdelu HaNe'arim and Esav became a hunter and Yaakov was an Ish Tam Yoshevo Halim, there's already a feeling that one of them is more of a man of the world, and the other one is going to be sitting at home and is more, say, inward, less active. Yeah. So there's something here. And just to say one more thing, I see your hand already, Shelley. Give me a minute. In Parshat Noach, we have the first example in chapter 10 in the list of in the list of the chronology of descendants of Noach. We learn about the earliest hunter. It seems his name is Nimrod, chapter 10, verse 9. If you skip there with me, so Breisheet, Perek Yud, Pasuk Tet, chapter 10, verse 9. Or 8 really. Chush Yalad et Nimrod, hu hechel liot gibor ba'aretz, who's the first mighty man of the world. Hoya gibor tzayid lifnei Hashem, he was a hunter before God. Al kein yamar ki Nimrod gibor tzayid lifnei Hashem. The people would say to each other, you should be a hunter before God. Now, what does before God mean? So Rashi, and this is mostly our understanding from a traditional perspective, Rashi explains here as liot gibor, to be a gibor, a mighty man. Nimrod means let us rebel. Lahamrid kol ha'olam ala kadosh baruch hu ba'atza dora palaga. He was like the leader of those who wanted to rebel against Hashem in the time of the council of the generation of the dispersion, when they make the Tower of Babel. What's a gibor tzayid? He's a hunter. Tzad da'atan shel briot befiv umat'an limrod b'makom. He hunts the ideas and the thoughts of humanity with his mouth, with his speech, and he's trying to mat'an limrod b'makom. He's trying to push them toward rebellion against God. Lifnei Hashem, before God. On the face of it, sounds very positive. No, mitkavein laknito al panav. He is trying in some way to either deceive or upend a God from before the people. So in other words, he's putting himself before God, right? Usually Lifnei Hashem is positive. No. Here it's actually quite negative. There's a ploy here. He's trying to turn things on their head. Al keni amer al kol adam marshia ba'azut panim yodea ribono mitkaven limrod bo yamer zeh ki nimrod gibor tzayid. Therefore, anyone who is wicked, anyone who has arrogance, and they know who God is, and they try to rebel against God, they say about that person, that's like Nimrod, who was the Gibor Tzad Lifnei Hashem, and they mean it very pejorative, in a very pejorative manner. That's it. That's Rashi. That's a traditional view. Not so according to Ibn Ezra, and I want to insert this into the discussion, and then we'll start taking some questions and comments. Ibn Ezra says the word Nimrod, if you were not told by the Torah itself a reason for a name, Noach, we have a reason for the name. Moshe, we have a reason for his name. We don't have a reason for Nimrod's name, so stop asking. That was just what his father called him. There's nothing to it. There's nothing more explicit in it. He was the first one who showed the mastery of human beings over the animal kingdom. He was a great hunter. Why is he called before God? Ibn Ezra. According to the Pshat, says Ibn Ezra, it means that Nimrod offered offerings on altars that he built from the animals that he had hunted. That's what he did, and that's why he's a Gibor Tzad Lifnei Hashem, a very holy man. The Hadrash derech acheret, but the Medrash, that's another way. Ibn Ezra did not shy away from just reading Pshat as Pshat. The word Nimrod means let us rebel. It means let's rebel against the animal kingdom. It doesn't have to, or nothing. It doesn't have to mean let's rebel against God. He's a Gibor Tzayid. He wasn't hunting people. He's hunting animals. And Rashi says, no, he was hunting people. He was building campaigns against Hashem. By the by, Pasuk Yud, it does tell us about the Breisheet mamlachto Bavel, ve'erech va'akad ve'achalnei be'eretz Shinar. So the beginning of his reign, right, is in Bavel, right? In Erech, in Akkad, that's Acadia, Kalnei, Chaldea, maybe. No, that's the word Kazdim. Kalnei, I'm not sure what it is. Chaldea, I'm not even sure how to pronounce it in English, but Kalnei, that's the name. In the land of Shinar, right? And later on, when we get to chapter 11 of Sefer Breisheet, what's the story going to be about? It's going to be about Migdal Bavel, and it's going to say that it's in the Bik'ah in Eretz Shinar. Now, when you come back to Esav over here, Esav's a hunter. He's a man of the field. And Yaakov is a person who is, what's the word? He's whole, he's complete. Rashi, Yodeat Said, Esav is a hunter. Latsud el Ramot et Aviv Befiv. He is hunting first his own father. And what's that? How does he hunt his father? With his mouth. He fools him. He deceives him. Visho alone, he asks him, Abba, Heyach ma'asrin hamelach v'rateven. How do I tithe salt? How do I tithe straw? Kasavur aviv shumadaktek b'mitzvah. His father says, oh, what a beautiful child I have. He's asking questions on the details of halacha. You don't tithe salt, and you don't tithe the straw. So the Medrash Tanchum Rashi quotes it. He's a bad guy. And that's what Gibor, that's what it means that he's an Ish Tzayid. For Rashi, who is Yaakov, Ish Sadeh, Kemashma'o, Adam Batel, right? So he is a man who is an Ish Sadeh, he's in a field. What is he? He's a man who doesn't, he's a ne'er-do-well, essentially, doesn't do anything good. He's Batel. What does he do? He's hunting, but he's hunting animals, wild animals and fowl. Ish Tam, Yaakov, by contrast, in his heart, that's what he speaks. There's no duplicity. If you want to hunt, you need to hide. If you want to hunt, you need the animal to trust you enough to come close to kill it, or you need to be concealed in order to go after it. Yeah. Misha'eno charif laramot karui tam. A person who does not have it in them to be duplicitous, to be deceptive, deceitful, they're called a tam. And he's a yoshev ohalim. He sits in tents. Which tents? U'alo shel shem, v'alo shel aver. He sits in the tents of shem and aver. He learns Torah. That's what you should do. All right. Ibn Ezra, you can already forecast. All right. What is he? What is he going to be saying? Is he going to say Esav's a wicked man? Is he going to say he's terrible? No, but he does point out Yodei Said L'olam Malay Mirmut. He is filled with deception. But do you know why he is filled with deception? Kirov achayot b'derech mirma yitpesu. Most animals have to be trapped somehow by deception. V'Yaakov hafach Esav ki hu ish tam. Yaakov is just a whole. He can't hurt anybody. Can't hunt. He can't deceive. Gam Esav ish sadev. Yaakov yoshev ohalim. Right. So Yaakov, a contrast to Esav, who's a man of the field. Yaakov dwells in tents. What does Ibn Ezra say? It means v'yitem leyot perusho kemo yoshev oil umikneh. He sits in tents with the livestock. One's a hunter and one's a shepherd in some way. Later on, what's Yaakov's job going to be when he lives with Lavan? Tending the flock, remember? So maybe that's what it means. You'll show Ohalim. For Rashi, the Ohel is the Beit Midrash of Shem, of Aver. The different views. Which one is right? Which one is wrong? You could answer the question by saying it doesn't matter. They're both right. They're working on different channels. You could say if you use the barometer of Pshat, you'll come up with one. You know what? The measuring stick, I should say, of Pshat is one answer. The measuring stick of Medrash is another. Vayigdalu ha'na'arim, they grew up. Vayi Esav ish Yodei Said ish sadeh v'Yaakov ish tam yoshev ohalim. Did it occur to you that if you look just in this one pasuk, Esav in a certain way has a split personality? I don't mean literally, like clinically. I'm not qualified to diagnose. But did you notice the word ish appears twice? And Yaakov, ish tam. I didn't make that up. I don't remember where I saw it, but one of the Mefarshim somewhere has this idea. The fact that twice it says that ish, because it's not a split personality like that, but right, if you want to send a level of pshat, you want to hunt, you need to be able to hide. You need to be able to set traps. You need to be able to kill things, right? That otherwise think you're not necessarily a foe. And if you're duplicitous with your father, you're also showing two faces of who you are. So with your father, you're a big tzaddik, but outside you're not. Yaakov, Tocho Kebaro, Libo Kepiv, inside like outside, his heart and his mouth are the same, right? So two different ways of looking at it, and depending if you're looking in the level of Pshat or the level of Medrash, you're going to see it in different ways. Okay, I'll take some questions, comments. Shelley, go ahead, please. But you have to unmute. I can't hear you. Shelley, I don't hear you. Is that on my side or your side? No, my sound is on. Oh. I asked you to unmute. Hold on. There, I hear you.
Oh, okay. Okay, I hope that my computer doesn't fade out like it's already done a couple of times today.
Right.
But all right. Would we be asking these questions if Yaakov was the firstborn. I'm sorry, poor Esau is just not cut out for this. And this double personality stuff could just be, he loves his father and he's not being duplicitous and evil. He's trying to do a role that he just can't do. He's afraid that possibly that he's going to be a sacrifice on the way, just like his father was. And he just can't do it.
Right.
And we have to ask, in verse 28, that Yitzchak loves Esau.
We're to get there. Yeah, we're coming to that. I didn't get to that yet, but yeah.
So would we be asking these horrible questions if Yaakov was coming out first?
Counterfactual, but a fair question nonetheless.
I just because Rome is, and Rome is like Hitler. I get it. It's horrible in Jewish history. Yeah. It is horrible. It's even, it's as horrible as you can get. Okay, but I can't put this kid who's raised by these two parents in the same kind of boat. I don't see it Peshat wise.
Right. So, like I said, that's why I'm telling you that they're Peshat as well. You have to realize that later on in Jewish history, there is a differentiated understanding of Esav as this fallen child who ultimately, there is, I think, ample evidence within Chazal. There still is a belief that in the Messianic era will return, and there will be a reconciliation between the Yaakov and the Esav of the world. There will be a synthesis between the two. But you're right, this child, and that's what I was saying before. This child, his father still sees in him, whether he was being duplicitous or not, whether you take that medrash as, as what that means, that he was lying to his father, according to Rashi, according to Tanchuma. But if you say that's not what's happening, clearly these are two different kids who are doing different kinds of things. And what's amazing is that his father still keeps looking for a way to make sure that he realizes he has a place in the family and a place in Jewish history and a way to relate, and he can get brachas. Remember? Now, it doesn't work out because Rivka's in the mix. And I don't want to blame Rivka Imenu either, because I think that when we get there, we're going to see a whole different, a whole different side to what this is about. Rivka, who emerges from a home that we learn also later on much more about. We have inklings already in Parshat Chayei Sarah, but by the time we get to the end of Parshat Vayetze, Lavan, her brother, will emerge as an incredibly villainous character. And she lives and comes and breathes from a world of duplicity, where the modus vivendi is no one and nothing is as it seems, and who they seem. And so, therefore, the child who is going to be following in those footsteps, that's not something she wants to perpetuate or encourage or indulge, right? Now, by the by, Rashbam, I'm going to put in with Ibn Ezra. Rashbam says, Yodeh Tzayid is Latsud Tzayid Lavi, he hunted food. And what does it mean? Yaakov was Yoshev Olim. He says, Ro'et Son Aviv. He was a hunter. It was a shepherd. Kamosh Pirashti Ish Yoshev Ol Umikneh. And in case this is not obvious, and you mentioned it last time, I think, Shelley, you get the credit for this also. It's from last year. But don't you think the strain, it's not accidental? This is already another story where there's one is a hunter and is somehow has a propensity toward violence, and the other one is just a shepherd. And there were already the two brothers at the beginning of world history, right? Where the one that's a shepherd gets killed, or is the hunted one hunted by his own brother, right? Who, by the way, was also an Ish Sadeh. He wasn't a hunter of animals, but he certainly was a man of the field. Cain actually uses the expression "Vayibiyotam bas Sadeh." That's why Cain's mincha that he brings is from the fruits of his labor, but it's not animal in nature. And a hevel works as a ro'et son. He brings from the sheep, right, from the livestock. So that's continuing. That's a Cain Hevel. By the by, actually is Yitzchak Ishmael, and it comes up again, Yaakov Esav. The Hasidim are very into this. The Shem Yishmuel has beautiful ideas about others as well, so it comes to mind. Okay, Shelley wants something else. Go ahead, please. Unmute again, because again, it's not working. No. Okay. All right. We tried. Let me move on and see if you can unmute, and still do want to hear what you have to say. But okay.
Oh, here.
Oh,
Okay.
good. Go ahead.
One, because of Rivka, I can't help but think that we know about Yisachar and Zavulun in the future. And that's going to be a partnership of two different personalities, one of whom is more of a businessman type, and the other of whom is more of a scholar type. So there could have been a partnership here. We've got the same, just like Cain and Hevel have the same two parents, Esav and Yaakov do, and both Yisachar and Zavulun are the children of Leah as well as Yaakov. Now, so I don't know why I think she messes it up. I think Rivka messes it up because of her own background.
Let's get to it when we get to it.
Okay.
But when we get there, yeah.
Why, if he's such a bad person, or why, if Esav is considered so bad and duplicitous, how can Yitzchak be eating from anything that he hunts? It's not kosher. And Rivka, being the tzaddikus that she is, would not have allowed it. So why is anybody eating his stuff?
Answer number one, Yitzchak doesn't know. Answer number two, the Torah hasn't been given yet. And even though they keep a lot of aspects of the Torah, does it mean that they were subject to the prohibitions of the Torah as well as binding things? Not clear. Number three, it's possible that since it was hunted food and that it was maybe roasted food and not cooked food, roasted food, is easier, assuming that the shechita goes the right way, which again, we're back to the same problem. If he hunted with bow and arrow or something, then the animal would be treif, you couldn't eat it anyway. So points well taken all, and refer to answers 1 and 2. I wanted to go back to something though that you said before. The Sforno, to my recollection, is going to come back to this exact point later on that you already shared with us right now, which is exactly on point. If the vision of Yitzchak is actually that Yaakov and Esav are going to be Yisachar Zvulun, then one of these two is going to be the pragmatic. He's going to be in charge of all the elements of statecraft that are required in order to build an empire. Not that I have empire in mind, by that's the wrong word, but peoplehood, whatever it is you want to represent Hashem in the world. We may not like it, but whatever it is, the shul needs electricity and it needs to have builders. It needs to do a dinner. You don't like these things? Well, okay, but we need certain things to make it go. It's not why we exist, but but it also needs to have people learning Torah and giving shiurim and learning and davening. Yeah. And some of the people in the organization are going to be more attuned to being engaged in the spiritual component, and some are going to be more attuned to more of the physical component. It's not Yaakov Esav like how it turned out in the Bible. It's Yisachar Zvulun. And perhaps the vision of Yitzchak Avinu, which is unrealized as of yet, is that in point of fact, there will be a guf and a neshama to Klal Yisrael. Again, it's oversimplification, but Esav will be involved in being out there in the world. He'll be in charge of the logistics. He'll be in charge of bringing home the food. He'll be in charge of marketing. He'll be in charge of security. He'll be in charge of power. But at Yaakov, he'll be in charge of morality. He'll be in charge of justice. He'll be in charge of spirituality, connecting to Hashem. And it's not that they'll be atomized, but rather they'll be integrated, Davka integrated. The tragedy, of course, is right away in the next pasuk that it's very puzzling to try to understand. What does it mean? Vayehav Yitzchak et Esav kitzai b'fiv v'Rivka ohevet et Yaakov. On the pshat level, one parent loved one child and another parent loved another child. Hayitachen? Can it be? How old are these boys? They're 15, and the mother wrote him off. A tragedy. And by the way, did the father write off the other child? Yitzchak Avinu, who's the Set Hamim, the great holy Yitzchak Avinu. he decided, I really like Esav. That guy, he brings in great food. What's Yaakov worth? Really? Could it really be that the pshat is just that simplistic? The Torah Kedosha just wants to tell us that. I'm saying all of this, of course, rhetorically. Of course not. Of course not. Right? Vayahav Yitzchak et Esav kitzayid befiv v'Rivka ohevet et Yaakov. We need to understand this really challenging pasuk. It cannot be that it's literally they just chose their favorite, right? Unless it means something else, like Yitzchak saw in Esav's hunt something that he really loved. But Rivka gravitated towards some element of Yaakov that was attractive. Shelly, give me one more minute. Just fill out the sentence over here. Yitzchak, who is unlike his brother Yishmael, who is a go-getter, who's a para Adam, who's out there. I'm saying it positively. There was a dark side, a terrible dark side, but Yishmael, who was the charisma of his father, and Yitzchak is not the outgoing, the extroverted. Yitzchak is very inward in many respects. So he's described to us by our sages of blessed memory. He's the midah of Gvura. He's not chesed that's reaching out. He's Gvura. It doesn't mean he wasn't the Baal Chesed, Chalila. It means that there was a different way in which he functioned and related to the world. And Yitzchak sees something now in Esav that's highly attractive. It's not who he is. But now there could be a shiluv. You could bring that. He'll be the ultimate, CEO who's going to be making our Mosdot Torah so powerful, so in a positive vein, not for the sake of power, for the sake of Hashem. And what is Rivka? She loves Yaakov. By the by, as you can see right here in the pshat, it tells you why Yitzchak loves Esav. There's a reason. And for Rivka, she just loves Yaakov. So even here, it's conditional in a certain way. Yitzchak sees the functionality of the functional element of Esav. It's not to say he doesn't love him as his child. Understand? That's why it can't be that it just literally means that's of course how we teach it in whatever it is, a second grade. The child comes home. Oh, Esav, he was so bad, and his mother knew he was bad, and she hated him. But Yitzchak, he loved him because he was fooled. It's very Zachalak. It's smooth. It's simple. Yeah. But then what, messages that to a child? Don't worry. One parent loves you and the other parent doesn't, maybe. No, that's such a great message. So there's a deeper level, just on the level of Pshat. Vayahav Yitzchak et Esav ki tzai befiv. Right away, of course, what does Rashi say? The befiv Pshat ketargumo befiv shel Yitzchak. He put the hunt in his mouth. He gave him the food. And like the Gemara says, the legima, when two people have a nice l'chaim together, it's makarev them like nothing else. And according to the Medrash, why does Yitzchak love Esav? Because Esav is so adept at his doublespeak that his father is unawares of what he's really become. It's not clear. But Rivka, she loves Yaakov. A whole, complete, total, holistic love. Now, by the by, before we vilify Rivka Imenu anymore, we'll look at the end of chapter 27, and we will see there, Rivka seriously does not want anything bad, to happen to Yaakov or to Esav. She's described as the mother of Yaakov and of Esav, and she says, I don't want to lose both of them on the same day. I mean, I don't want them to die. I don't want one to kill the other. But that's not apparent right now in these psukim, right? We're going to get to it. Shelly, I see your hand waving. Go ahead. But I don't hear you yet. It didn't work again. Okay.
Well, okay. To me, it's obvious from verse 28 that Rivka and Yitzchak do not communicate, and that Rivka never told him about what I hate to use the word oracle, but it always seemed to me like an oracle, because that's why it doesn't have to say why she loved him. She loves him because of this prophecy or whatever, which I believe she read wrong. So if Yitzhak, based on, was it Sepharno?
Right.
Sepharno says that he expected this partnership. Yitzhak envisioned this
Yeah,
partnership.
later on he says it, I think. So I
Well,
don't
the
see it right here.
partnership
Later.
could have worked out, like later on when we find out that Yitzchak has to dig wells that Avraham did. That's the kind of stuff that Esav would have been doing. He'd have been the more active face out there. So because she doesn't talk to her husband and tell him about this, his idea, which is probably the correct one, or maybe could have been the correct one,
Maybe.
it doesn't have a chance. It's dead in the water.
Well, it doesn't have a chance because it doesn't work.
Do we know that it wouldn't have worked if she didn't treat him this way?
Counterfactual. It's hard to know. Cautionary tale. What do you want to take from it? You know?
Well, I certainly don't want to take the business where the kid comes back from school that if your parents isn't going to love you if you don't do everything exactly right.
I think in the end they did both love both children, but Rivka saw. I mean, we'll get there when we get there. I don't want to go too far, but you're exactly. I don't think it's not just a simple story, but there are many layers here. Shoshi, go ahead. Good morning. Go ahead, please. Doesn't seem to be unmuting, Shoshi. You want to try again?
Okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I hear you. Yeah, go ahead.
So can't it just be that neither parent wanted their child to suffer their own childhood?
Yeah,
I mean, does it have to be so complicated?
Yeah, it could be. The stark nature of it is we would expect in the moment in which we live, both parents love both children equally. That's the pasuk we're looking for. And it's not what happened. It's just not what happened.
Because we're all parents and we all have I don't know if we all do, but assuming we all have multiple children, I have multiple children. I love all my children differently, not equally, differently.
Okay.
Some make me crazy at sometimes, and I like the other ones more.
Yeah, yeah. We're being recorded, so you better not say names. We're gonna.
I love them all. They're equal. But you know what I'm saying. And so yes, he loved Esav because he knew that Yaakov might have a really tough life ahead of him, just like he did. And she loved Yaakov, knowing what a tough life she had.
Yeah, and he's a pure.
And you know what? They're attracted to each other, Yitzchak and Rivka, because of the opposites.
It could be. But what Shelley was referencing before, we saw in the Netziv of Volozhin that she held him in such high esteem. She held Yitzchak in such high esteem, such holiness, that there was a distance between them. Even in their marriage, the conversation was sometimes lacking for that reason. It was such awe, bordering on pachad. You know.
So just after being married many years, you know that sometimes the things that attracted you to your spouse in the beginning are the things that make you crazy
later on.
So the thing that attracted her, his holiness, is a thing that drove her a distance between.
Yeah, well, that was right. That was in the end a big part of it. I mean, that's the big mystery. Why didn't Rivka just walk into Yitzchak and say, "Do you know what he's actually up to? We should probably talk about what your beloved Esav is doing. That I see that clearly you're blind to it." She could have said to him. It's only later on that it's Patichena Einav Miraot, and we're not going to be clear when it says that his eyes were dimmed from seeing, if it's just then from old age or if it's a result of the Akedah that happened much earlier, and he never had vision, right? He never had sight.
Right, and he never would have heard her because those aren't words he could understand. Either way you interpret it, it doesn't matter. His vision now was very holy.
Taka, could be. Thank you. Point well taken. Shelley, go ahead, please. It's not working again. We're having problems today. I'm clicking the S. Oh, there we go.
In Peshat, it says that Yitzchak loved Rivka. It never says that Rivka loved Yitzchak. I wonder if that has something to do with it too, especially if she holds him like Shoshi says in such incredible awe. Maybe you can't love somebody that you idolize that much. And unfortunately, we're going to hit a bunch of other dysfunctional families when you end up with 4 wives later on.
That is coming. That is going to be a challenge. that is going to be a challenge.
So I guess what I'm asking is, since we're supposed to be studying this, not just because of what happens, but because of what we're supposed to learn from this, boy, it's very hard to learn anything from this family kind of stuff, because which family are you in and which kid are you in? And it's very confusing.
Different models, different ideas about how to figure out what's what. Yeah. And what not to do. But the truth of the stories is still the truth of the stories. And, this is this is the reality of our patrimony. Yeah. Shows you something else you wanted to say. I can't hear you though. You're still muted. Is there something wrong with my machine? Why does everyone have to, no one can unmute themselves? Oh, it's my side. Wait, unmute. I don't hear you again. I don't hear you. That didn't work. That worked for a second. There.
Okay. You have to unmute us still.
I don't know why. That's weird. I'm going to check my thing here. Okay.
I
Go
think
ahead.
these lessons aren't telling us what to do and what not to do. I think they're showing us reality of life so that when things happen to us, we don't feel so judged. We don't feel so like, oh my God, we are so horrible. Life happens and we see in the Torah patterns. And we learn from these patterns that, oh, guess what? It's not that I'm not going to repeat those patterns because life happens, but that they get over it. And life, we see brothers fighting. Okay, guess what? Brothers fight. And sometimes it's
painful and hard and challenging. And we learn about being children. We learn about being parents, about being siblings, all these relationships.
And it's not something that's not going to happen. It's something that we can look at and say, oh, and the Avos had this as well, and maybe whatever,
Relation. Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Thank you for that. Debbie wanted to speak. Please go ahead. Good morning.
Rabbi,
Wait, Helen, Debbie had her hand up. Give me 1 minute. Helen, give me a minute. I got Debbie and then you. 1 second. Debbie, go ahead.
Okay, sure.
I totally agree with Shoshi. And actually the whole twin situation, being blessed to be the grandmother of twins, even though the circumstances are obviously not identical, there's always lessons that we can draw. And I think there's I know I've repeated this before, maybe because of my background or where my learning comes from, but there's almost a purposeful intent by Hashem in these stories, because if they were all perfect and then we apply 2022 standards to some of it, obviously,
right.
what would we be learning?
Right. We fall short as it is. Imagine that. That would be much worse.
Exactly. So, okay.
That's great. Thank you for that. Thank you. Okay. Helen was next and then Rosalie. Helen, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm going to challenge Syed Basif as a philologist because I want to know, is there a precedent on the word Syed anywhere else in the Torah?
Impression Noah.
Usually, so what is the negative or positive feeling about that word Syed previously?
That I don't know if you were on the call yet at that point, but that's what I was describing. We learned inside the Mefarshim there that according to Ibn Ezra, it literally means a person who hunts. It's a positive thing. You need food, and that's how you get food in the olden days. You hunt for it.
Well, exactly. You were talking about Shul and Zvulun.
That's Yisachar Zvulun. We talked about that later, but I was just saying it started.
I mean, you were talking about the need for the practical people who run the show practically, and the spiritual people both being needed.
Yeah.
So you might say that he's the breadwinner, if you want to talk about Syed Basif. So just leaving it, I'm surprised at Rashi usually finding something that we had no idea, like Mahabore came from lion, that why we are all negative about this Sayed Bafif story. It's bothering me. It's too negative.
I mean,
Yeah.
again, that's the Bali Medrash. That's what I was saying before. The Bali Medrash is trying to understand how it could be that there were such terrible events,
And as
people,
you-
whatever it is. Like, what's are there signs? Can we look back and find signs from earlier that would make us
But you're
understand?
saying Sayed by Noach is positive, is what you're telling me.
I'm not saying it
And
is.
now-
I'm saying that according to the Ibn Ezra, and U'Imei, the level of pshat is to tell us that in fact these people have just that's their the professional pursuit. They're hunters. That's what they do.
Right.
They're not
That's
evil
their
for it.
ethic.
That's what they do.
It's just,
It's a line
that's
of
their
work. It's
ethic.
honorable, right? And Kitzai B'Fiv means he loved his son because he saw he's the provider. He
Right.
recognized in himself a lacuna in practicality, if you will. Yitzchak Avinu.
so you're going to bite the hand that feeds you? That's what Sayed Bafif is being really interpreted as.
Well, that's the whole thing. That's the Mefarshim going back and forth about. That's what they're trying to figure out. That's true. That's true. So, Rosalie, you wanted to
It's
say
an
something? I
enigma.
give Rosalie had something else
Thank
they
you.
wanted to say. Let's give Rosalie a chance. Go ahead,
Thank you.
please.
Hi, thank you. Am I
Good morning.
unmuted? Hi,
Yeah,
good
you're
morning.
unmuted. I hear you.
Okay, thank you. What confuses me is, like, in our daily tefillot, we say, even though we have the Torah right in front of us, we say, Yaakov bincha b'chorecha. Like yesterday, it hit me like, what? Like, it's like,
Yeah.
not everybody has like wonderful family relationships, unfortunately. Ad hayom hazeh. But like, what is this?
Right. So we do not have time to unpack all of it. Let's just say the story that we will learn next time is about the question of who is and what is a Bechor. Is it literally the person who's born first, or is it a status conferred upon a person, which by default goes to the person who is born first, but it is not fixed in birth order per se? Others can assume the mantle of the Bechor. What is a Bechor? Who is a Bechor? And for that, we have to learn next time this particular story. So that's a good question. Clearly, someone paskin somewhere Yaakov is the Bechor, but if you look in Lama Pshat, it seems obvious that Esau came out first. After all, the second child's name is Yaakov, holding the ankle of the first one. So it's pretty much his name that he came out second. Right.
Right.
So it's kind of hard to argue. Yeah. So we'll have to get into this next time. Now, next week is Shavuot, so we will not have a shiur. We'll miss that. The following week,